Hello, once again, ladies and gentlemen. In this episode of Travis Talking, I will bring to light a few issues that I have recently discovered. I find them very interesting, as if implemented, could set the stage for huge change in our current way of living. And of course, just to very quickly mention, it none of this will really truly make a huge change unless the people themselves change and they begin living by their moral compass, deciding what is right by their own means, and not having to seek authority outside of themselves in the form of a government body. So, with that, some of the changes that we could make include decriminalizing hemp, our companion plants. It's such a hugely useful plant. Many people are aware of it. Some people, this is very old news, but there are still many people who are not actually aware of the huge number of uses that hemp can be used for and the resulting impact that would have on many, many different industries. Some of the most polluting industries in the entire world wouldn't it be uh, redundant if we was to decriminalize hemp and reuse it as much as we used to. Many countries around the world actually used to use hemp for many things, and it's only been in recent times that it has been outlawed in so many places around the world. A couple of very quick examples would be it can be used as paper, so you don't need to chop down trees for paper anymore. It can be used to make buildings. If the fiber is incredibly strong, so we don't need again to chop down trees for buildings, and it can even make concrete, can make hempcrete, it's called, by following this mixture and procedure. Can make clothes. It's also very good to eat. It's an incredibly useful plant for our bodies. It contains all the amino acids, it's complete protein, as well as many other things. Also, when you grow hemp in the ground, it improves the soil quality of the ground. It only takes about 3 months to get a crop, and so the list goes on. And so that's a very good place, a very good place to start. Another good thing that we could implement would be to outlaw central banking, and this sort of piggybacks off what I was talking about in the last talk, where the head of the snake of our current situation that many people are in is the banking institutions and the illusion of power that they have claimed, and how that affects people with the debt system and all of that, and the interest on the debt. So if we was to outlaw central banking, and then the government prints their own money and they don't have to worry about the interest, that would be also very good. Another one would be to outlaw lobbying, which is just bribing, get the money out of the politics. If you think about it, if you had enough money, you could pay politicians to put in a law to benefit you at the expense of everybody else. It's just because you don't have millions and millions of dollars spare that this doesn't, you can't do that. But suddenly, if you did, then that's okay. Apparently, in our current way of system, and when again, that comes back to the whole moral compass idea, where you can look at that, and it's very easy to identify that that's not right. That's obviously wrong. Destroying our environment, just so a small group of people can make a lot of money at the expense of themselves because they're destroying the same place that they live on, but also the rest of humanity is clearly very, very wrong. You don't need to Really, you don't need a law to tell you that, but the current way the system is, it works like this. So to outlaw lobbying would be very good. And I was listening to a great talk by Max Egan just recently, and he has a very interesting philosophy that I'd just like to mirror. In that it's all well and good to have these new ideas on alternative cultures and all of that, but given the current scope of power this current system has, at least that we believe it has, and so the people enact this illusory belief of power by participating in the system. Um, you just have to look at what they can do what is done in Gaza, with a whole nation just eradicated and then walled in with, and then the threat of um, guns and tanks and all this warfare to say that, okay, so if you was to create your little community and you got a few hundred people, maybe 1,000 people, and you were living peacefully, but the rest of the world continues around you and is slowly turning into chaos, well, um, that your little community is not going to have the technology or the arms to defend itself against such a monolithic empire that has been created. So we have to participate in this system in every way we can to be able to have a greater impact, to awaken the minds of the people, or enough people, so that then this system, this organically dies, and then when it does, or organically changes to better suit the needs of the people. And again, it comes back to that moral compass, folks. Take your moral compass out, get your map of knowledge, and begin on the quest of truth, and the answers will come. Begin with the questions, and the answers will come. Again, it comes back to having respect for yourself, and then having respect for others comes naturally. But it all begins with the self. If you think about it, even if tomorrow the whole world was changed, the whole system was changed, if you still have people who don't respect themselves and then don't respect others, eventually given them enough time, the system will revert back to the one we have now, with the whole psychopaths and all of that sort of stuff. Okay, and with all of that, so if we have those put in place, that would be very good. But a very interesting thing I've just recently come across is a 1% transaction tax. And so what that would be is on every time you buy something, it'd be 1% tax on that. And then when a seller sells something to that same transaction, um, there's also 1% tax on that, and that would be universal at the source, and everyone would have to pay it. And what's interesting about that is because you can then remove all of the other taxes, and still this one tax would pay for all of the services. And if we take the UK for example, so as of 2015, I believe this figure is from, um, 470 billion pounds in tax revenue. Um, and you look at that, that includes the companies or corporations that don't pay any tax. And so that's like Google and Starbucks and eBay and McDonald's and Apple and so on. All these huge companies, corporations that make huge amounts of money and don't pay any tax. Think about that for a second, and how much money is lost in that revenue. And then if we would just implement a 1% universal tax, that it would cover that loophole which has been created via the lobbying from politicians, and then it would generate 1.5 trillion pounds, and then the people could only have to work about 2 days a week, and they would still be better off. Now think about that. That if we were to keep this current system and just make a few little changes, that's pretty huge, So things like that would be, if we were to implement this, but when you think about it, okay, the way the current system is set up, it probably the government in itself is too far corrupt that it wouldn't actually put this into play, especially any of the ones I've just mentioned, any of the ideas. But the 1% transaction tax is probably the most powerful out of all of those, and the line of progression that could well happen is as follows. In England, you can have a referendum if you get enough of the parishes on board of a certain idea, and it's not actually that much. And once that has happened with this idea, and you could convince these politicians, because it's like, well, some of the lower level politicians anyway, and it's like, hey, look, you're gonna get more money if we do this taxing system, and everyone cares about money, and most people want to work a little bit less than what they do, and so everyone would be interested in this idea, and you get everybody's attention, and then you have a referendum, which may or may not be rigged or whatever, and even if it doesn't get passed, then you look at that and then people are like, well, why wouldn't the government pass this clearly helpful law for us, the people, and for the country? Why wouldn't they do that? And it's that would bring people's attention to the corruption of government, and where we go from there. Well, it'd be very plain to see that people would start very rapidly losing faith in the trust of government. And then, if in tandem you have more people beginning to respect themselves and do their own work and begin to be the change that they really want to see, um, then wouldn't take too long, and we could have a very, very different world to live in, folks. It could be a completely different world. And this is just if this was to happen in England, it would set a very good example for the rest of the world to follow, and it would reach the whole world. It wouldn't. So these are the kind of steps we have to think about, because it's clearly obvious that they wouldn't get passed if given the current corruption of the government. But then it leads people to this idea that the government's corrupt and they do not have their best interests at heart. So I think this is a very, very interesting game plan that we can do as the people who are awakened to the corruption of this current system. Um, and I have done a lot of research and gone down a lot of rabbit holes and how this current way of living that has been forced upon humans, although well, we do choose on one level to participate in the system, and at the end of the day, it comes back down to the person, at the individual, the people, for allowing such a system to take place. And I've gone down rabbit holes and seen what the deeper roots of this entire system is originating from. And I think I found it very interesting and empowering to know about this stuff, but we have to take sequential steps to be able to awaken people or begin them on their awakening journey, so that you don't just instantly talk about something that is way, way out of their comprehension and they just label you as crazy and don't even want to listen to anything else you have to say. You have to come at people at their level of understanding. And it's a lot easier if you are just you make an effort to be friends with people. You just drop little seeds here and there, and um, get to know your neighbours if you don't, and just talk about these things, or just subtly mention them and see if there's a bite. But if you were to just confront people in the street outright and challenge everything they believe and saying everything you've been living in your life has been meaningless, and this is how life really is, and this is da 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 and so on. That's hugely confrontational, and people will just shut off and they make no progress. So we have to take a calm, wise approach to this matter and understand the programming that people have received, because and there's no need hating on these people in any way. No need hating on anyone. If you understand that people are just being programmed, they don't actually understand or they don't know what they are doing or how life could be different. They've just accepted this reality that's been put forward to them, and they don't know any better. So we have to be very tactical in our distribution of knowledge, and that is a huge, huge thing. And um, you know, I like to stop and think about how it could be so much different on this system and on this world. And okay, well, we can just do everything we can to try and help humanity, try and help them wake up and help humans choose a better reality for ourselves. And if we do everything we can, and yet it is not enough, and humanity chooses self-destruction, well then so be it. That's there's nothing we can do about that, but we can still do everything we can and know in our hearts we are doing the right thing, and we shall go from there. And I truly do have faith, especially in the people who are already awake and on their awakening journey. There is some very incredible human beings on this planet, and they have potential for vast, vast changes to be made. And once everyone they begin to be as a beacon and shine their light, and then they can inspire other people to actually realize that they have so much power. They have these reality creation abilities that they're never even aware of, with their whole emotional resonance and their whole interacting with the field, with their emotions and all of this. So it's up to the trailblazers to begin to set the fire and light the lights, and then there wouldn't, no need to be any leaders, because the people would be their own leaders. People can lead themselves, and if it wasn't for the constant bombardment of this current dying system to trying to lock humans in a frequency prison through all of the different chemicals uh, and propaganda and all of that stuff, then already by now I imagine we would have a much different world. But of course, this people in power, they do not want, or the people who believe that they have the power, they do not want to lose this power that they have had. So they're doing everything in a desperate attempt to try and stop what is, but to me it seems inevitable. And the more they seem to try and stop the evolution of humanity, the more humans evolve. When you think about it, although the system in so many ways is terrible and is causing so much suffering around the world, it's also causing more people to wake up and remember who they are than ever could have been possible before. It's very interesting when you look at it, and how like on the higher levels it would seem that evil is actually quite is necessary to spur on the evolution of the good, the positive. And then once people have made the choice to be good, they solidify their choice by destroying the evil. And we destroy the evil, and the clock ticks backwards and forwards, between the darkness having the power and the light having the power. And now it is time to bring forth that light, my friends. Bring it forth inside of yourself, and then bring it forth out towards this world. Start with the people around you, and let's go from there. That's all for this episode. Thanks. Until next time.